What's going on, everybody, and welcome back into the channel, going region by region through March Madness, taking a look at the brackets. And in this video, we'll be bringing you the Midwest Regional, which is headlined by the Houston Cougars. But will I have Houston going to the Final Four out of this region? Stay tuned to the channel to find out. Let's go ahead and hop right into the video, though, as we've gotten through two of the four regions thus far. And, of course, we are referencing, as we have in previous videos, this spreadsheet, which comes courtesy of Rick Run Good, another YouTuber, and he is really big in the fantasy and DFS space for golf, but has an annual March Madness video that he's done that has been really, really compelling year over year. Going to have to do a little bit of trickiness with the spreadsheets because of the shape of the bracket. We're now working with the right side of the bracket, so I'll have to move the spreadsheet around a little bit when I get to that side of things. But this is what we're looking at as we've done in past videos. The silver model there is the percentage likelihood of a team to win according to Nate Silver's analytical projections. The Yahoo column is basically the percent of the population that in the contest on Yahoo Sports is picking that team to do so. Anytime the silver number is higher than the Yahoo number, we're looking to take advantage of that potentially if we can, simply because we'll get leverage on the field if it happens. And then this E-Lev button is kind of a way, if that's showing up there, to show which teams in each round are good values according to that differential of, the silver column being a lot higher than the Yahoo column. So what stands out right away is High Point, but still only a 28% chance to actually win their first game. So just something to keep in mind there. Even if you're getting leverage, doesn't mean it's going to happen. There's a 70% chance, 72% chance that High Point doesn't win that first game, right? So that's just something to keep in mind there. Okay, let's pull the bracket over. We'll be hopping back and forth between the silver stuff and the bracket itself, so just bear with me on that. Let's start with Houston, SIUE. I've pretty much just auto-advanced the other the other one seeds over the 16. But we did interview Coach Brian Baroni of SIUE on Sports Hub STL Sunday night, so I want to give those guys their due. I'll be rooting for the upset, man. I'll be rooting for SIUE, the Cougars, to slay the Cougars of Houston, but I am going to pick Houston to win that game. I think SIUE could cover the spread, though. Two teams that play it slow. If SIUE can just take care of the basketball, they might be able to stay within that number. Moving on, though, down the line, Gonzaga, Georgia. Gonzaga favored by 5.5 at present, it would appear. Again, that's kind of a big spread for a matchup between 8 and 9, but there's a reason for that. When you look at the KenPom numbers, as I've still got Texas Tech highlighted from a previous video, take a look at this. I mean, KenPom has Gonzaga as the number 9 team in the country. And Georgia, well, they don't have Georgia as the number 9 team in the country, let's just say. They're 34th, according to KenPom. So just very strange that you can see a team that is so beloved by the metrics in Gonzaga. If KenPom had its way, Gonzaga would be a 3 seed, and instead they're an 8. That's bad news for Georgia, potentially. And I am going to take Gonzaga, but I'm curious on the Rick Run Good spreadsheet. I want to take a look and see exactly the likelihood here of, as I'll take myself off the screen to make it easier for a moment, of Gonzaga advancing 71%, and the public only picking it at 69%. So there's actually still a little bit of positive leverage there to be had for taking Gonzaga, and so that is exactly what we're going to do as we continue to move our screen around. We'll take Gonzaga to win there in the first round. These 5-12 and 4-13 matchups are the toughest for me in the entire bracket because I'll be honest with you, I want to take both underdogs. I just want to slam both underdogs through in my bracket. McNeese, coached by Will Wade. I saw this video, though, the other day. Will Wade is a Clemson grad, like he went there for school back in the day. He says McNeese doesn't practice for basketball when Clemson is playing football. That's how big of a Clemson fan he still is. I wonder if he's throwing the game. Will Wade's been known to do some shady stuff before, so you never know. But that McNeese team, they were a darling last year in March Madness, and everybody picked them, and they got waxed by Gonzaga in the first round as a 12 seed, I believe it was in that occasion as well. This time, though, I think Clemson might be a little bit of a better matchup for them. I don't know how much better, though. I want to check my paper bracket here. I did write McNeese down, but let's take a look because I don't think it's now 21%. It's not a very high likelihood. It means there's a 4 out of 5% or 4 out of 5 chance that Clemson does ultimately move on. You see they're 78%. But Clemson's being a little bit over-selected relative to that. But at the end of the day, like, the positive leverage doesn't matter if your thing doesn't happen, right? If your team doesn't win. So is 21% enough to say, hey, let's take our shot with the leverage? What I would say is this. Normally, the answer would be no. The answer would be no on that. And that 1.47 that I've got circled there is the expected leverage for McNeese. The reason the answer would be no is because of the scoring setting on ESPN. The way that it works, guys, and this is a big part of the game theory behind the bracket stuff. Let me scroll up to the top. Round of 64, as we're looking at it here, is worth 1 point if you get the winner correct in that round. If you pick who wins out of the round of 32, it's 2. And then it's 4 in the Sweet 16. In the Elite 8, it's 8 points. In the Final Four, it's 16. And to pick the winner of the tournament is 32 or 320 points because I think ESPN does 10x for all their scoring. So with that in mind, you're not gaining a lot necessarily by picking the early upsets. I love the contest that I do that prioritizes the upset because it's the seed by the round. I haven't filled out my brackets for that yet, but maybe I will to kind of show the game theory of how people would maybe approach those contests. Because, for instance, in that kind of contest, let's find the region we're actually looking at here, the Midwest. Let's talk about McNeese. If McNeese wins in that kind of contest, first round pick for a 12 seed, that's 12 points. Whereas if you pick Clemson, it's 5 points. And if you get it right, of course, you got to get it right. But who's more likely to advance beyond the round of 32, right? If I went Clemson, they've got a better chance of beating Purdue or High Point than I think McNeese would have. That being said, I do my brackets my way. I want to be able to say I called it. I called my shot on the double-digit seed that made the Sweet 16. So what I have written down, and this is the pick in my bracket I think I trust the least. Clemson's going to win this game. However, I'm picking McNeese. I'm also taking High Point. Purdue, I like to fade each and every year. Remember, they were one of the teams that lost to a 16 seed at one point as a 1. Purdue heavily favored. I like High Point and the points here. The Panthers can put it in the basket. Let me check out their analytics data here on KenPom. Going to slide this over so you guys can kind of see High Point. 25th in adjusted offensive efficiency in the country for High Point. Now, their defense is definitely lacking at 227th in adjusted defensive efficiency. But that's a team that can absolutely score the basketball, and maybe that's a situation that when push comes to shove, man, it only takes one day to be able to do it, and I would love to pick these upsets. So this is what I'm doing. This is where my bracket goes to the you-know-what. Goes down the toilet. But I'm picking it this way with McNeese and High Point both advancing. I actually think High Point's got a better chance to get out of the first round, and so that's why I'm going to default to High Point to the Sweet 16. That is probably the biggest upset I'll pick. And again, in one of those contests where it's round by seed is the scoring setting, it'd be a 13 times 2, which is the second round, 26 points. That would be worth more than correctly picking Duke to win the national championship. Because if you're picking Duke, you get 1 point when they win in the first round. You get 2 points when they win in the second round. You get 3 in the third, or 4 in the third, and on the way up. I guess it's not quite to that extent as I made it out to be, because Duke, if you pick them to win the national championship, it's 32. Sometimes the scoring settings in some brackets are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in those, the early rounds are actually worth more. And I almost like that better because it means that you could go, 28-4 in the first round, and that actually means something rather than you could go 18-14, but if your Final Four is alive, you're still alive. My favorite days are the Thursday, Friday. So I would actually, if I were king of the world, I would run a scoring system that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get 6 points to pick the national champion, but those early rounds are weighted much more heavily. Nevertheless, I'm not king of the world, and I'm still trying to fill out this bracket. So let's get through the rest of it here. When the brackets came out, I was looking hard at Texas potentially making a little bit of a run because it's hard to trust Kentucky right now. I think Kentucky's got a really great draw for themselves. If they can take advantage of it, it's going to be the only question. But let's take a look at that to get out of the round of 32 business. Or pardon me, to get out of the round of 64. Illinois is down here, and something's gone wonky with my screen. But that's fine. We'll just ignore it. Illinois, as I sort by Nate Silver's projections here, has got a 59% chance to win their first round game. Between Xavier and Texas, they're both in about Xavier's at 27. Texas not given much of a chance at all to make the round of 32 because, of course, Texas would have to beat Xavier and then beat Illinois, and Texas is not favored to beat Xavier. I'm basically ignoring both Xavier and Texas, though, and I'm going to ride with this 59, even though it is definitely negative expected leverage to the degree of 8.39% to do so, to take Illinois. If you get a little deeper, look at what happens one round later. If I take away this column, you'll be able to see it. I really think this is an interesting aspect of the game theory behind it. Illinois, suddenly, though, if they do happen to get through that first round game, which is only a 59% chance, they're much more favorable to win that next round. Like I had said, I think the Kentucky draw is, I guess, any way you slice it, maybe a little bit of a weaker region, which means the 6, Illinois, could take advantage of Kentucky. Kentucky's just a 42% chance to get to the Sweet 16. Illinois is 34. That's almost the same. That's only like a 7 percentile difference. And Yahoo's got 63% of folks picking Kentucky, only 26%. You can see where the divergence is. That's a negative leverage of 9%. That's a negative expected leverage, or a positive for Illinois of 2.78%. So for me, Illinois to the Sweet 16 is an easy leverage play, and it's one that I kind of believe. I'm not going to take Troy to upset Kentucky, but I will take Illinois over Kentucky. And then I'll be really tempted. I'm going to take Tennessee over Wofford. Wofford, like 6 years ago, was a 7 seed. They were awesome. I think they shot the 3 really well. This year, they don't really stand out in that regard. I looked into this matchup last night. I could see Tennessee, if they have a slow start, maybe keeping Wofford around. Tennessee's going to win that game. And this one, I'm going Utah State. Let me check the spread on Utah State and UCLA real quick here. Yeah, UCLA is favored by 5.5. Man, that's gotten up there. That's definitely an upset play. How about this? Let's see what the spreadsheet says about this one. 63% chance for UCLA. Let me move some stuff around here for you guys. There I am. 63% chance for UCLA, 63.5 to make it out of the first round. Utah State, certainly not as favorable. Are they even on the screen? There they are. 36% chance, but only 31% being selected, and UCLA being slightly over-selected. This would be maybe not the analytical call, but I'm going to say UCLA chokes and take Utah State. Tennessee for me over Utah State. You kind of get a little bit deeper into this as we'll, now that we're through. I think we've picked all the first round games, so we can hide this column and talk about the second round games. Okay, Houston, Gonzaga. This is where it gets interesting. Rick Rungood in the video that I'm referencing with this spreadsheet that I've been using here, he took, I'll take myself off the screen because I want to be able to show this part of what's going on. He took Houston to win the whole thing. And the reason for that is pretty simple, because they've got this plus expected leverage over here that when you rate it out relative to, and let me show all the regions for a moment just to explain this since we're talking about Houston. If you sorted the whole table by the expected leverage over the field to win the NCAA tournament, and that would be here. This column right here. I don't know what I did to delete the lettering on there. Yeah, I did something. We can fix it though. Okay. So this column right here is the one we're looking at. And that at the top is Houston right there. Let me even find a way to show you. I'm learning how to use these spreadsheets on the fly a little bit better. Okay. Whoop. Not much better, though, clearly. This is what we're looking at. When it comes to winning the whole thing, Houston's got the highest expected leverage of the entire field. And that's because, as we look at some of these other teams, the one seeds end up, and like Alabama and Tennessee are up there as well, as you guys can see. Trying to remember how he sorted this. Well, I can tell you. We can just sort it by, to make the Sweet 16, you're going to see all these 1 seeds at the top. Duke, Florida, Houston, Auburn does drop slightly below Tennessee. So that tells you already Houston, Tennessee is considered more of a interesting one. But as you get deeper into it, to win the whole tournament, and that's the part of the spreadsheet that we're finding here. Going to scoot it all over for you so that we're just looking at this part. To win the tournament is what we're considering. The others, Duke, Florida are the 2 top teams here. That's where you're looking at these. Basically, because Silver's got an 18% chance for Duke to win it all, and Yahoo has 28% of people picking it. That means, so you can pick it, you're not going to gain on anybody in the contest, right? Everybody's picking the same thing. Same thing with Florida, 13% chance they win it, 17% of the population's picking them. So you don't really gain anything. 15% chance that Houston wins it, only 8% of the population is picking Houston. And so that's why Rick Run Good did that in his bracket. I don't want to. I want to take it a little bit of a different route, acknowledging that it kind of flies in the face of the analytics of it all. There's another team that has some really good leverage as you get deeper and deeper into this thing from this region, and that's Gonzaga. Look, Illinois with the highest expected leverage to get to the Sweet 16, which means if they do, you're gaining a lot on your friends. You're gaining a lot on the field relative to what they picked. However, look who's second place in the region in that regard. If I can show it. Figuring out how to show it here. There we go. It's Gonzaga. And they've only got a 21% chance to do it. And so I have to acknowledge that it's a lot less likely to happen than Houston at 73% chance to do it. But this is where I want to pick an upset. Because if I do that, my bracket gets really creative and different. I faded the better seeds of this bracket, and Gonzaga is apparently the 9th best team in the country if you ask KenPom. So I've got Gonzaga to the Elite 8 by virtue of just having them beat Houston. I think it's a decision, as I'm kind of messing everything up here, it's a decision that happens in that 1 versus 8 matchup, where if you've got Houston, yeah, I mean, you probably need to take them all the way if you have them to kind of gain an advantage over the field. But if you want to get crazy, that's probably the spot, I think, to do it because of what we talked about with the leverage on a Gonzaga, because this 1.78% up in the right here is them. And as it goes along, there's still good leverage here, 0.73. So each subsequent round, you can probably keep some really good leverage on Gonzaga. And of course, when I have Gonzaga playing High Point, I'm taking Gonzaga there. So it makes it even easier to get them to the Elite 8. The one that's tricky, Illinois versus Tennessee, as we're close to wrapping up this region. Let's get rid of the Sweet 16 because we've already put both teams there and check out our leverage to advance even further. Where it gets tricky is I'm starting to think of the possibility of making the Final Four as well. And we can sort it by Nate Silver and his projections. That's what you're seeing here to the right. I'll highlight the column. The top team, that 38% is Houston, but we've already decided to fade them. Probably should take Tennessee at that point because anybody else like Clemson is that 7.2%, Kentucky 6.9%, Gonzaga 6.6%. We have faded a lot of those teams already. Gonzaga's the one, Illinois is the other. I think, though, because of all the other crazy decisions we've made in this region, with Gonzaga advancing beyond Houston, we're going to take Tennessee and have them be the team that gets to the Final Four. I don't love Tennessee. They're a good team. I could see Illinois upsetting them, and this Illinois-Gonzaga game would be really fun to get to the Final Four. But how crazy do you really want to get is basically what it boils down to, I think, in the manner of those decisions. So that's what we end up going with. This is a fun region to fill out. If it happens, you're talking about some serious upset potential here. And I do think that this is the region where you could see some craziness because I think it's the weakest region. It just seems like the 4s and 5s don't really move me. Kentucky as a 3, I think, has a lot of flaws. UCLA as a 7 doesn't really move me. I wish there was one team I really loved But the team I really like the best relative to the field is Gonzaga, and they're an 8. And so they have a hard time even getting through. Like if you switched it, if you made Gonzaga the 7 and UCLA the 8, I would really have a lot of fun with this region because I would take Gonzaga to beat Tennessee. I would take Gonzaga probably all the way through. But it's just a little bit strange that on the top half of the bracket, there's Houston, which I don't dislike Houston. But Gonzaga is the one that I think is underseeded. And they happen to be in a region where I don't like either the 4 or the 5. So Gonzaga ends up, by virtue of that, advancing. This would be certainly a crazy Midwest, but let me know what your thoughts are on this one and if it's something that you think is actually conceivably plausible to happen in the NCAA tournament. That'll do it for this video. We'll try to get the other one done later tonight. The last region that we've got yet to do is the East region, where most people have Duke advancing. We'll see if we do as well. Appreciate you guys for the time, and we'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.